factor for many on the board, and I can only speak for myself. I think the deciding factor was looking at the state aid, looking at the state's projections, knowing the budget the way I know the budget, and looking at what we had on the warrant tonight and listening to this debate tonight. And if this is approved, although there's a part of me that would like to do it, where am I going to get that $82,000 from? Which department, which program, which service, where am I going to get that $82,000 from to pay for this? And so I think that's what caused me the greatest concern. And if there were a stampede of some, I can't buy it on a whim that maybe we can turn around and put out an RFP and develop it, much like the Berry property is being developed. I mean, that's an RFP, that's a controlled development. I think I'm very excited to hear that CPC is going forward with the grant program to get a plan in place. That'll help. And I also know that the purchaser works here in the community, and I'm very hopeful that that we don't end up with 200 units there. And I certainly know that I myself and many others in this room would fight long and hard if that's what they try. So I think that it's a tough decision, but for me personally, it was a difficult decision. But I think when you come right down to it, for me, the budget and the facts of the budget spoke the answer to me. Thank you.
I see quite a few people waiting. We'll take Mr. Piero first.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Moderator, I can see if the town would buy and use it for business. This town needs business, not recreation. This town is top heavy. You don't need the recreation, you need the business in this town here. Bring some business, rezone it for business. That's fine. That's wonderful. But now we throw money after good money. God knows if we can get together at the end of the year to take care of the school. That's not a laughing matter here, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot of trouble ahead here. You have a lot of fixed income. You have a lot of children, and you got no room. And we talk about recreation. Throw money for recreation. You don't talk about business. Anybody has any business head in this town here? Use them. Bring business in this town here. Then you can do all these things here. What is going wrong with this town here? They don't understand. The future of this town here is going to go down the drain. How many children you got here? An average of 2 or 3 each house. One child only pay for one house, don't even. The others in town we got to pay. We got to pay. Where's it going to come from? What a time.
Gentleman at the other microphone, please state your name and address, sir.
Mark Penny, 12 Owen Road. Just a question, I guess, for town council. I'm a little perplexed that you know, the present owner is getting the benefit of a reduced tax under farmland, and the town has the right to purchase it. But yet, I mean, does he legally have the right to keep us off from just doing some inspections? I mean, he sounds like, I mean, some basic information is not being presented at this meeting. Even the committees didn't have, obviously just stated here, they didn't have all the information available to them to really make a thorough decision based on the facts, like you know, how much of the land is actually usable, because he didn't let you on. Did he really have a legal right? Was that pursued?
Mr. Giorgio.
Mr. Moderator, through you to the previous speaker, we had a disagreement with the landowner over the issue of access. It was our position that we had a right to access that property in order to conduct the investigation as soon as the right of first refusal option vested with the town. The developer, or the owner, as I understand it, took the position that unless and until town meeting voted to exercise the option and we were in a position to step into the shoes of the purchaser as part of the P&S, that we did not have the right until that time. So we really came to an impasse, and the question was, should the town go to court and litigate over that issue? The decision was made not to do that at this time. If, of course, town meeting were to authorize the purchase and we were to step into the shoes of the purchaser, there would be the normal contingencies contained in a purchase and sale agreement, the right of inspection, hazardous waste investigation, etc., which would allow the town possibly not to go through with the transaction if there were problems that were discovered during the normal due diligence that anyone does during prior to a real estate transaction.
Thank you, Mr. Giorgio. Lady at the microphone, please state your name and address again.
Vicky DeSimone, 4 Fox Run Lane. I would just like to say that we all know that building residential housing is a net loss to our tax revenue. People demand more services than they pay for. If you put up even 5 homes there, you're going to probably have, if he's only doing 5 homes, I'm assuming they're going to be nice big homes with lots of kids, sending them to school. Who's going to pay for that? We are, in the long term, forever, as long as the housing stock is there. And I'd like to know, have you ever known a town that has regretted buying and preserving open space for future use?
Gentleman at the microphone, Mr. O'Leary.
Mr. Moderator, Steve O'Leary, 15 Mead Road, also member of the Hillview Commission, and I was the minority member of the commission. I was the one who voted that we should take some action in purchasing this property. Just a few points. As was pointed out, it's going to cost approximately $82,000 a year to carry the note on the purchase of this property. And as was pointed out, if they put 5 homes in there, it will generate $32,000 worth of tax revenue. However, if you have 2 kids per household, that's 10 kids at approximately 6 kids, $6,000 per kid. That's $60,000 it's going to cost you to just educate the kids, never mind anything else. So you've got a net loss there of almost $30,000, which netting it out would give you about $50,000 carrying cost. Everything's a wash here. But just as a point of reference, when the board, and I was on the Board of Selectmen at the time when we voted to take Ipswich River Park, the sale price in that particular property at the time was $525,000. When we took it by eminent domain, the value of it went up to $1,520,000, which is what we spent to purchase that property. So as far as what we come up with assessed valuations and today's value and what is it really worth to us, you tell me what that property at Ipswich River Park is worth in the town of North Reading today. So as far as the $1,250,000, that's a bona fide purchase and sales agreement between 2 parties, disinterested arm's length transaction. That's what the value of it is right now. The value to the town of North Reading, who knows what it is. It would provide us an opportunity, if the town were to purchase it rather than Hillview, provide us with the opportunity to look at several options, whether it be meeting our affordable housing needs, which would fit into the Community Planning Commission's housing proposals. It would be a measured approach in which the town would have and retain complete control as to what's going to go on the property, as opposed to a private developer going to the state, which would override the local zoning bylaws and would have substantially more say than our local planning board. We've been there before. I was there in 1990 with Mr. Hingarani. Fortunately, the money dried up for him, and we ended up with 28 house lots instead of 180 units down there on Chestnut Street, off of Chestnut Street. To me, this is an opportunity, and as Mr. Wheeler pointed out, there are several other parcels in this community that come under the same category, and we should have a plan in place to answer the question as to what are we going to do when the opportunity presents itself. We should be looking at the Community Preservation Act, which again, as a member of the board, I regret not having done and put forth for consideration, which would provide us some funding sources. We have Hillview as a funding source, but for $80,000 a year, and yes, it's going to have a substantial impact on next year's budget in the near future. But I think we have to look beyond our nose, and we have to look a little bit further into the future to provide ourselves with an opportunity to retain control as to what's going to take place in our community. And the only way we can do that, or the best way we can do it, not the only way, but the best way we can do that is to purchase the property and have control of ourselves. If we need affordable housing, let's determine that there's going to be 15 units instead of 100 units. Let's determine what it's going to be used in. What's wrong with just leaving it alone as far as a municipal purpose? There's nothing wrong with determining that the municipal purpose for this particular parcel is to leave it alone. leave it alone and leave it vacant. The vast acreages that are around town now, they're very few and dwindling. So as someone else pointed out too, what town has regretted retaining open space and taking control of it? So while yes, it'll be a pinch, and yes, it's going to make a difficult decisions more difficult next year, I think it's penny wise and pound foolish to pass up the opportunity in this particular parcel and in others coming up. And again, that could come tomorrow, it could come 10 years from now. We don't know with these other parcels, but we have to take a closer look and take control of what's going to happen. And I would just urge you to pass this and vote it.
Ms. Bailey?
Marcie Bailey, 21 Duane Drive. I was the member of the Board of Selectmen who recommended for this article, though that was by far the most difficult decision I've had to make on an article tonight and even last April, I would say. Because I don't think it's simply a matter of can we afford it or not. I think it's a matter of what our philosophy is as a town and what our priorities are as a town and what the individual philosophies and priorities for our town are of each of you out there. Can we afford it? You know, on a dollars and cents level for what it means for our operating budget next year, no. As Mr. O'Leary pointed out and Mr. Murphy pointed out, it's going to mean some short-term pain. It's going to mean cutting things, and as Mr. Callaghy said earlier, everything's on the table, but it's going to mean $80,000 next year we don't have to spend on our operating budgets. That's not available. It's not available for public safety. It's not available for schools. The same way an article that will come up later tonight, the Batchelder School article, means if and until that is approved as a debt exclusion, that means $50,000 a year that will not be available for, again, our general government and or schools. That's a teacher we may not be able to have because we need an elementary school renovation. This is $80,000 that the town may decide is more their priority and philosophically to keep some open space and control growth in the town, to take out of the operating budget and do that. I really, like, as I said, I've struggled with this, and I really don't know that there's a right or wrong answer, but once it's developed, it will cost us money forever. If we buy it, it will cost us money during the bonding period for 15 or 20 years. It will cost us tax revenue we don't get later. But like I said, there are options, there are possibilities. Mr. Wood came to a public hearing we had and presented an interesting theoretical plan that could be looked at. Can we develop elderly senior housing that would not drain our services? I think that's something we could look at. If we decide not to use it, can we resell it? If we decide later, you know, yeah, we should have let somebody just develop it and not get involved into that. So maybe we want to leave our options open, but like I said, my recommendation more comes that I wanted the opportunity to stand up here, and I think it's our philosophy and something our town's struggling with, and where do we want to go in a town. And I hope that gives you a good picture. Our debt service next year, and just briefly, the way we budget, and this is important to understand how this will impact our budget next year, we budget $475,000 annually of general fund debt service. Anything over and above that comes out of stabilization. Anything below that, we return to stabilization. However, next year, without the Batchelder School and without this 193 Elm Street property, our debt service is already at $705,000. So we'll be pushing $850,000 with it. That's money that can't come out of stabilization fund. It's going to have to come out of the operating budget. I mean, less to live on a day-to-day basis, perhaps to preserve our philosophy of educating our children or of keeping open space in the town. So I hope that just puts it in a little more perspective and helps you all with your personal decisions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. While Ms. Bailey was speaking, the chair was approached by the chairman of the Finance Committee with the following question, and that is whether an amendment to the main motion would be acceptable to make this a debt exclusion override. Now, as the chair understands a debt exclusion override, that would mean that the purchase price of the land would be bonded as proposed in the article, but that the bond would not be approved unless the voters of the town accept in an override election that such a thing would be done. So therefore, the answer to Mr. Sturdivant's question is that yes, such an amendment would be acceptable, and a motion to amend requires a simple majority vote, whereas the main motion, with or without the override